So today I am going to talk about my birth story. So, the birth of this little one, his name is Justice, and he was born back in February. So it has been almost 4 months since his birth date. And so how my birth story went is a little unique and sometimes different than a lot of people's birth stories, because I am a labor and delivery nurse and I was a birth doula and childbirth educator. So I kind of had an idea of what was possible unless something really abnormal or unique happened, and what I really wanted. Now, with that being said, plans usually do not go according to how you want it to go. I find that is often the case, but I started making my plans at 30 weeks along. I started doing spitting babies, tons of different positions. The ideal position for birth is an anterior position, occiput anterior position, which means that the back of his head is facing your front, is next to your front pelvis area, and not your backside. And another term for it is sunny side up. He was not a sunny side up baby, and I tried very hard to make sure he wouldn't be a sunny side up baby. And how I did that was I did a lot of, when I would sit down, I would lean forward, which is a little annoying when you're watching TV or doing computer stuff. But when you lean backwards, the back of their head is the most weighty part of their body. So it's gonna go wherever gravity takes them. So if you're leaning back, they're going to lean back with you with the back of their head, which would end up with a sunny side up baby, which is not what we want. So I started that about 30 weeks, and I started doing different spinning babies techniques. I will reference spinning babies in the description below so that you can check out their website and see if you want to start doing stuff during your pregnancy too. So with this little man, I started going into labor at a great time, actually. Around 3 a.m. is when I first woke up with a contraction that I noticed. Now, could I have been in labor at midnight? Totally. And it could have just been contractions that I wasn't feeling, which is super normal in the early period. So, but the first one I woke up to was 3 a.m. I was still able to go back asleep, which is what you would want to do in that situation. You want to sleep as much as possible, because you never know how long labor is going to be, and you need that energy. And it's hard because you're excited and you've been waiting for this day, but I promise you, you want to try to sleep if you can. And then I woke up like for 5 minutes every 30 minutes or so, until 6 a.m. At that point, I was like, I don't think I can fall asleep anymore. This is getting kind of, I'm noticing this. Now, is it painful? A little bit, but it wasn't like super bad, but I definitely couldn't sleep through it anymore without like taking a Benadryl, which I wouldn't necessarily recommend, even though I do know some midwives do that in practice. I personally wouldn't recommend it just from my experience with Benadryl. With that being said, so around 6 a.m. I got in the shower. The shower worked for like 30 minutes and then it stopped working. My shower isn't very strong, so I do think if my shower had been kind of a stronger power, the water, it would have been much nicer. But because it's kind of a light powered, I don't know how to say it, a light powered water hose, it wasn't really hitting my stomach really hard. So, and I didn't have a bathtub, unfortunately. It's like one of those really small 1970s bathtubs that doesn't even cover your tummy. You're like sitting in water and it like doesn't even go above your belly button. So it wasn't helpful at all, even though I did try that. So around 6:45, I went and woke up my husband and I said, I think we need to start putting our plan in action. I need your help. And so he obviously jumped up. He was all ready because we had made a huge plan of what he was going to do, when he was going to do it, so that I wouldn't have to think about all this stuff. Because that's a huge important part of your job, daddies, or whoever your person is going to be in labor with you, is they take the responsibilities of all that extra stuff that we don't need to spend our time thinking about because we're in labor. So a lot of those things is water. You should be drinking water like every 30 minutes. You should take a few swigs. You want to stay hydrated. It's easier on your labor. It's easier on your baby. It's better all around. You want blood flow getting to your baby, to your uterus as much as possible, and water helps with that. Every 45 minutes, every hour, maybe even less, maybe every 30 minutes. I think I did every 30 minutes or every 45 minutes was his timer for me to go to the bathroom. Having a full bladder will affect labor. It will not be good. You do not want to have a full bladder. So you really want nothing in that bladder. So you want to be peeing frequently. You don't want that messing with your contractions. So I had him have an alarm set for that. I also had him to have an alarm set for Dopplering the baby. Now, obviously not every one of you guys can do that. One, because Dopplers are expensive, and two, you might not be trained in heartbeat information like I am as a labor and delivery nurse. So, you know, there's pros and cons with that. The reason why I did that is because I did stay home until I was 7 centimeters. So because of that, I did want to keep an eye on the babe, even though plenty of, you know, times as a birth doula, mama stayed home till 7, 9 centimeters and we never checked the baby because there was no one trained to do so. And the baby was always, you know, perfectly fine. But just with my experience, I definitely wanted to keep an eye on the baby's heartbeat. So I had a Doppler and he Dopplered every 15 minutes, just for like a minute, like 30 seconds before a contraction, during a contraction, and a little bit after a contraction was what I was checking on. So another alarm was snacks, making sure to have, you know, a handful of nuts or some fruit, anything to build up tissue. Protein's always a good thing. You don't want to have anything fatty. I wouldn't recommend fatty. And depending on your circumstance, if you're in active labor or not, it will depend on your provider and their preference for that. But if you're staying home for a long period of time and you're not in the hospital and you're not anticipating a C-section for any reason, you know, snacking is always good, keeps up energy, and that's what I did. And I had a snack I think the timer was like every 30 minutes or every 45 minutes. I just had like a couple, like 5 almonds or a couple bites of an apple or something, just a little bit, because you're not really probably gonna feel very hungry, but it's just for energy purposes and protein, and you're gonna be doing a lot of healing after the baby, so that can be important to have a good appetite, especially postpartum. So around 11:30 a.m. I called one of my labor and delivery nurse friends to come to my house and check me. At that point, she said I was 4 to 5 centimeters, but my cervix was leaning towards the right. Now, what that means is that when she checked me, she had to go towards my right to find the cervix, which means I was not even on either side. So I took that information and I did a lot of different left-leaning positions. If I sat, I leaned towards the left. If I had a peanut ball that I was using, I would be on my left side. A lot of just left things. Because I knew when it's centered, the cervix is centered, you just dilate so much faster. So it hit around 12:30, so an hour had passed, and I was really feeling them at that point. 12:30, I was like, oh my gosh, this is painful. Now, it's painful for, if you think about it, for like 30 seconds every other minute, or every 2 minutes, or every 3 minutes, depending on how your contractions are going. At that point, I was actually having contractions every other minute, which is a little brutal. They were only lasting about 50 seconds though, so they weren't super long, but they were. And then, you know, 50 seconds of that, only really 35 to 40 seconds is really, well, maybe even less. 30 to 35 seconds of that time is really painful, where you're just like, oh my gosh, this is so hard. So it's totally doable. all I would just be thinking in those moments, it's just 30 seconds. It's just 30 seconds and it would be done. And then I'd have a breather. I'd be able to relax. I was not one of those women who could be all meditative and, you know, humming or doing anything like that, like hypnobirthing. That I tried. My brain doesn't work that way. I'm not really a relaxed individual. I'm more like, let's put some Bon Jovi on, living on a prayer. Yeah, that was more my kind of labor experience. For me, what really helped me during this time, especially going into transitional, is focusing on one thing. Like, just thinking about one thing and doing one physical thing every contraction. So my thing was, I was vocal. A lot of women are not vocal, not sure why, but I was very vocal. I would go like deep groaning during the contraction. And for some reason, my brain would then just be concentrated on my voice. And I think that was a really good distraction measure for me. Really helped me. Every woman's gonna be different though. And then for eyes, I either closed my eyes, or what I would do is I would stuff my face in my husband's shirt. That smell, that kind of black distraction, because his shirt was black, kind of felt like closing my eyes, and then I'd breathe into his shirt, those deep, while I'm deep groaning. And that really helped me. That helped me so much. I think that's how I made it to 7 centimeters before going to the hospital, which was the plan. I was always planning to have a hospital birth. Just with my experience, I mean, I have nothing against home births or birth center births at all. I had a wonderful experience as a birth doula in those situations with patients doing those kind of births. It was always wonderful and I really enjoyed it. But my experience in a high-risk hospital has definitely like made me a little fearful of things, even though I know that they're rare circumstances. I couldn't help but think about that. So I always planned to have a hospital birth, but I planned to be home as long as possible. So I was messaging my doctor saying, hey, I need to go to the hospital. And she's like, yeah, I'll meet you there. My doctor is phenomenal. So if you're in the Southern Oregon area, please let me know. I highly recommend my OB. And so we got to the hospital. I was 7 centimeters. I tried the bath, even though we don't do bath births at my hospital. We tried the bath for a little bit just to see if it would help me. It wasn't helping me. Usually it helps earlier on. Transitional, it's not as helpful unless you've already been in it for a while. Is just what I've noticed as a birth doula. Yeah, do you want to tell the world something? Do you want to tell your side of the story? Yeah, do you want to tell your side of the story? So I was admitted at 1:30. So 2 hours had passed since I had been checked. So now I was 7 centimeters. And I got the epidural probably like an hour and a half later. Just because of wait times. Usually there's not that much of a wait, but it was a Sunday. So I think that might have been why. Epidural wasn't super fun to get, but I've always been a needle phobe, so I really don't want to state my opinion on it and scare people because I personally have been always scared of needles. So I think I may have like overreacted because I knew a needle was coming. But so I got an epidural and it didn't work. Worst ever. Now, since I have a lot of experience with epidurals as a nurse, I think we might have to do a to be continued. All right, I'll be right back.